should employers have ongoing background checks for employees once a year, every 2 years, or whatever it is, just to make sure nothing happened? And is there any other very basic information that people tend to forget or not pay attention to?
Well, as I mentioned, employee screening is governed by the Fair Credit Reporting Act, and that's a federal law. There are some state laws as well, but the federal law, the FCRA, governs it for the entire country. One of the most important parts, there's an initial disclosure requirement. There must be a separate and distinct disclosure form whose sole purpose is the background check. You never want to put your employee disclosure for the background check as part of your general employment application.
Okay.
In addition to it being separate and distinct, it must have the requisite language and no additional language. There are many companies right now that are being sued in attempted to make class action lawsuits for having disclosures that, quote, were facially invalid. Facially invalid means even if you had all the correct requisite language, if you had one additional sentence that did not pertain to the background check, it could violate the entire background check, and the authorization and disclosure form will be deemed invalid, and the penalty there is $1,000 plus potential attorney fees and other penalties. One example of a facially invalid sentence would be a general release of liability to the employer. You cannot include that in your employee background check, your FCRA disclosure and authorization form. You can include that in your general employment application, right. But if you include a general release of liability to the employer in the employment background check, there are law firms right now that are going after companies, and the bigger the company, the larger the target.
Fees,
yes, and with a willful violation, you do not have to prove any damages. Simply the fact that it occurred, even if the applicant got the job, if you had that additional sentence, the company could be looking at thousands and millions of dollars. So there are settlements now. There are many companies that have settled for multi-million-dollar settlements because they were
examples you can share that are out there on the news.
Well, there's one recently. Dollar General settled for $4.08 million, but and this is according to the public record. There were over 100,000 applicants during the period of the class action lawsuit. Well, at $1,000 per applicant, your potential penalty was over $100 million just there, not including legal fees. So settling for 4.08, actually, litigation becomes so expensive. It was a better move. It was a better business decision, as painful as 4.08 million. And there have been other companies that settled for even higher amounts.